As the sun begins to set on a quiet, country road, Officer Daniels is just finishing up his shift, patrolling the long stretch of highway that cuts through a sleepy town. The peace of the evening is only interrupted by the occasional hum of a passing vehicle. But today, something's different. In his rear-view mirror, he spots a car coming up fast, too fast for this residential road. He squints, noting the vehicle weaving a little bit, speeding past the houses and corner stores that line the outskirts of town. His hand moves instinctively to his radio, and with a deep breath, he flips on the siren, lights flashing bright as he pulls into pursuit. As the car in front of him accelerates, Officer Daniels can't help but wonder why anyone would be in such a rush on this lonely stretch of road. He taps his thumb against the steering wheel as his patrol car closes the gap between them. As he gets closer, he begins to feel a sense of urgency. This is more than just a speeder. The way the car swerves left and right, almost as if it's uncertain, it doesn't feel right. With a sigh, Officer Daniels flicks his siren a little louder, pulling the car over. When the driver pulls off to the side of the road, the officer's curiosity grows. Who is this person, and why are they in such a hurry? He steps out of his patrol car, feeling the cool air against his skin, his shoes crunching against the gravel. He walks confidently up to the window of the speeding car. "Good evening, sir. Do you know why I pulled you over today?" Officer Daniels asks as he taps on the window. The man inside doesn't immediately respond. He seems nervous, almost distracted. Officer Daniels peers inside, expecting to see the usual scene of a tired commuter or a teen with a lead foot. But then, something catches his eye. A big, fluffy dog, sitting proudly in the passenger seat, ears perked, with a smile that stretches across its face like it's in the middle of a happy dream. But then something odd happens. The officer blinks twice and leans in closer to the car. "Wait a second," he mutters to himself, eyes narrowing, before speaking aloud. Is that my dog?" The man, who's been fumbling for his license and registration, freezes. His eyes widen. The tension is thick. "Officer Daniels? Is that really you?" The officer's heart skips a beat, confusion flooding over him. He takes another look at the dog, the golden fur, the distinct patches of white on its paws, and that unmistakable face. The dog that was once his, the dog that he had thought he lost years ago. What's going on here?" Officer Daniels asks, a mix of disbelief and shock in his voice. He steps back slightly, scanning the vehicle. The man, now visibly nervous, starts to stutter. "I'm sorry, officer. I didn't know. This is my dog, actually. His name's Max. He's been with me for a while. I'm a veteran, sir. I'm not sure how he ended up with me, but..." The officer's expression shifts from confusion to understanding. The dog in the passenger seat, still looking at him with that familiar gaze, begins to whimper as if it's just as confused as the humans. Officer Daniels takes another step back, mind racing. Could it really be his dog? The one that had disappeared without a trace 2 years ago was now sitting right in front of him. He feels a sudden rush of memories. Long walks, playing fetch, the unconditional companionship that had been taken from him far too soon. It had been a painful time when his dog Max had vanished. Daniels had searched everywhere, called shelters, posted flyers, and even asked around the neighborhood, but there was no trace of Max. And now, here he was, sitting in the passenger seat of a car belonging to a complete stranger. His heart pounds in his chest. "Max, is that really you?" Officer Daniels asks in a shaky voice. The dog, clearly recognizing the sound of his voice, wags his tail slowly, his eyes brightening. The officer, trying to keep his composure, slowly approaches the car and opens the door. Max jumps out with a burst of energy, his tail wagging furiously. The officer kneels down, his hands trembling as he pets the dog, feeling a mix of relief and confusion. I can't believe it. How did you end up with my dog?" Officer Daniels asks the man, trying to piece together what had happened. The veteran, his face flushed with embarrassment, sighs deeply. "I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't know he was your dog. He showed up at my door a few months ago. I'm a vet, and I was fostering animals for a while. Max had been through a lot, but he had this bond with me, you know? He followed me everywhere." He pauses, looking down at Max, who is happily licking the officer's face, as if oblivious to the tension in the air. "I thought he was just a stray, and when no one claimed him, I kept him. But I didn't know he belonged to someone like you. I didn't know." Officer Daniel stands up, his heart still racing, and looks at the man with new understanding. "I'm not mad," he says, his voice softening. "I just want to know what happened. How did Max end up with you?" The veteran takes a deep breath and starts explaining. It turns out that Max had been found wandering around a local park near the veteran's house, looking thin and scared. The veteran had taken him in, assuming he had been abandoned. Over the months, they'd grown close, and Max had become his emotional support animal, helping him cope with the challenges of life after serving in the military. Officer Daniels listens intently, his heart aching for the veteran, but at the same time, he feels the weight of the lost years. "It's complicated," the officer admits. "Max and I were together for years. I thought I lost him. I had no idea he'd been taken in by someone like you." The veteran nods, his face sincere. "I understand. I wish I had known. I would have contacted you, but I didn't know who to reach out to." The officer sighs. "I've been looking for him for so long. I didn't know where to turn." For a moment, they both stand there, looking at Max, who is now happily playing at their feet. There's a long silence, one filled with unspoken words and shared emotions. Finally, Officer Daniels looks at the veteran and says, I think Max should stay with you. He's found a good home with you." The veteran's face softens and he nods, tears glistening in his eyes. "Thank you, officer. He's been the best companion I could have asked for." With that, the two men share a look of mutual understanding, and Officer Daniels gives a final pat to Max before stepping back. "Take care of him, okay? He's more than just a dog to me," the officer says, his voice full of emotion. The veteran smiles, wiping a tear from his cheek. "I promise, officer. He's safe with me." As Officer Daniels heads back to his patrol car, he takes one last look at Max, still wagging his tail, and feels a sense of peace. The dog that had been lost for so long had finally found his way back to where he belonged, somewhere safe, loved, and cared for. And though it wasn't the reunion he had imagined, it was one he could accept, knowing that Max had found happiness once again. The sun sets behind them, casting a golden glow over the scene as the officer drives off into the fading light, his heart lighter than it's been in years.